Ambassador walked slowly through the great hall of the Empire. His four legs moved carefully on the polished black floor. Around him stood hundreds of warriors, their dark exoskeletons shining under the purple lights. They watched him with cold, unblinking eyes. Was old. He had lived for over 2,000 years and had seen many things. His skin was wrinkled and his three eyes were tired. But today, he had come with an important message, a warning that could save millions of lives. At the end of the hall sat Supreme Commander Hal on his throne of bones. The leader was massive, twice the size of his soldiers. His mandibles clicked together as he watched the ambassador approach. "You have traveled far, old one," Hal said. His voice echoed through the hall like thunder. "The collective rarely sends messengers. This must be important." Stopped before the throne and bowed his head slightly. "It is, Supreme Commander. I come to deliver a warning from my people, a warning that could determine the future of your empire." Hal leaned forward, his compound eyes reflecting the light. "Speak then. What warning could they possibly have for the mighty?" "You are planning to expand into the Orion Arm," said. "Our observers have watched your fleet gathering. 400 warships, enough to conquer a dozen systems." "This is no secret," Hal replied. "The Orion Arm has many rich worlds, resources we need, planets we will claim." "There is a species in the Orion Arm," continued. "Young creatures who call themselves humans. They control only a small number of systems, perhaps 40 worlds. Their technology is inferior to yours. Their ships are slower. Their weapons are weaker." Hal made a sound that might have been laughter. "Then, why should we concern ourselves with such primitive beings? They will fall before us like all the others." Closed his three eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, there was something in them that looked like fear. "Do not attack the humans, Supreme Commander. Do not challenge them. Do not threaten their worlds. Leave them alone and expand in another direction." The great hall fell silent. The warriors shifted uncomfortably. No one had ever spoken to their Supreme Commander this way. Hal rose from his throne, towering over the old ambassador. "You dare come here and tell me to fear a species with inferior technology, a species that lives for less than 100 years, a species that has never won a major war against any galactic power." "That last part is incorrect," said quietly. "They have never lost a war because they have never been in one. No intelligent species has been foolish enough to start one." "Until now," Hal said with pride. "Do not fear. We have conquered 200 star systems. We have defeated we have crushed we have broken the spine of the Federation. What are humans compared to these mighty empires?" Reached into his robe and pulled out a small device. A holographic image appeared in the air between them. It showed a planet covered in green and blue, with white clouds floating across its surface. "This is Earth," said. "The human. We have watched them for 300 years. We have studied their history, their wars, their nature." "And what have you learned?" Hal asked mockingly. "We have learned that they are Category Omega," replied. The words hung in the air. Some of the warriors took a step back. Category Omega was the highest threat classification in the system. It had only been used 3 times in their recorded history. "Impossible," Hal said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. "They are technologically inferior. How can they be Category Omega?" "Because threat is not measured only in ships and weapons," explained. "The humans possess qualities that make them uniquely dangerous. They are adaptable beyond any species we have encountered. They learn from every defeat and become stronger. They do not surrender. They do not accept defeat. They will fight until their last breath, and even then they will find ways to hurt you." "Pretty words," Hal said, regaining his confidence. "But words do not win wars." Turned off the hologram. "Let me tell you about their history. Humans have been killing each other for thousands of years. They have developed weapons that could destroy their entire planet. They have actually used weapons of mass destruction on their own kind. They know what it means to face extinction, and they survived. They built their civilization on the bones of their enemies. Brutal creatures, Hal admitted, but brutality alone cannot defeat superior technology. There is something else, said, something that makes them more dangerous than any species in this galaxy. They have spite. Hal tilted his head. Spite. When humans are defeated, they do not simply accept their loss. They remember, they hate, and they wait for the perfect moment to take revenge. They will sacrifice everything, their ships, their colonies, even their own lives, just to ensure their enemy suffers. This is not logical. This is not rational, but it is very, very human. Hal waved his claw dismissively. Enough of this. You have delivered your warning, Ambassador. The collective has done its duty, but the Empire will not be frightened by stories about primitive apes from a backwater planet. Nodded slowly. He had expected this. He had hoped for something different, but he had expected this. Very well, Supreme Commander. I will take my leave. He turned to walk away, then stopped. One more thing. We have watched empires far greater than yours vanish from the cosmos. The eternal dynasty of, the machine collective of, the psionic lords of the ninth dimension. Every single one of them made the same mistake you are about to make. And what mistake is that? Hal asked. Looked back over his shoulder. They underestimated humans. As he walked out of the great hall, he heard the laughing behind him. Their clicking mandibles created a sound like 1,000 insects. They found his warning amusing. Did not find it amusing, he found it sad. That night in his ship orbiting he recorded a message in his personal log. His voice was heavy with sorrow as he spoke. They have rejected my warning. They will attack the humans within 6 months. They believe their superior technology will guarantee victory. They believe their vast fleet will crush the human resistance. They believe they are the predators and the humans are the prey. He paused, looking out the window at the stars. They are wrong. The humans are not prey. They are something far more dangerous. They are survivors. They are fighters. They are the monsters that other monsters fear. He closed the log with a final statement. They have chosen extinction. May the void have mercy on them, for the humans will not. 6 months later, the invasion began. The stars above New Montana were peaceful that morning. Farmers worked in their fields, children played in the streets of small towns, and life continued as it had for the past 50 years since humans first settled this world. New Montana was not a rich colony. It had no rare minerals or strategic value. It was simply a place where 2.3 million people had built their homes. They grew crops, raised families, and dreamed of a quiet future among the stars. Commander Daniel Brooks stood on the bridge of the ECS Defiance, watching the sunrise through the main. He was a tall man with hair and tired eyes. He had served in the Earth Defense Coalition for 30 years, and he had never fired a shot in anger. Space was peaceful. Wars were something that happened in history books. His communications officer, a young woman named Lisa Park, looked up from her console with confusion on her face. Commander, I am receiving a strange signal. Multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Daniel walked over to her station. How many contacts? Lisa's face went pale as the numbers appeared on her screen. 400, sir. 400 warships. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Empire had finally come. Daniel took a deep breath. He had 12 patrol ships under his command, 12 small vessels with basic weapons and thin armor. Against 400 warships, they had no chance. Open a channel to the civilian population, he ordered. Begin evacuation protocols. Get everyone into the underground shelters. The next few hours were chaos. Sirens wailed across the planet. Families grabbed what they could and ran for the bunker entrances. Mothers carried crying children. Fathers helped elderly neighbors. Everyone moved with desperate speed. Above them, the fleet approached like a dark cloud. Admiral Wren stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Void Crusher. He was pleased with himself. This would be his easiest conquest yet. The humans had no real fleet, no orbital defenses, nothing that could threaten his armada. "Send the standard message," he ordered his communications officer. The transmission was broadcast across all frequencies. "Attention, human colony. This is Admiral Wren of the Empire. You are now under our control. Surrender immediately and unconditionally. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your population. You have 1 hour to comply." Wren expected panic. He expected begging. He expected the humans to fall on their knees and accept their new masters. What he received was very different. Daniel Brooks sat in his command chair, his 12 small ships forming a line between the fleet and his world. He knew he was going to die today. He had accepted that fact the moment he saw the enemy numbers, but acceptance did not mean surrender. He opened a channel to the flagship. His voice was calm, almost casual, as if he were discussing the weather. "This is Commander Daniel Brooks of the Earth Defense Coalition. You have entered human space without authorization. You have 60 seconds to reverse course. This is your only warning." On the Void Crusher, Admiral Wren made a clicking sound that passed for laughter among his kind. Did this human just threaten us, with 12 ships against 400? His officers laughed with him. The translator must have malfunctioned. No sane creature would challenge such overwhelming force. "Ignore the fool," Wren said. "All ships advance. We will crush these insects and claim our prize." The fleet moved forward. Daniel Brooks smiled sadly. He had done his duty. He had given them a chance to leave. They had refused. Now it was time to show them why humans were not to be underestimated. "All ships," he said quietly into his communicator, "execute Plan Omega." The 12 human patrol ships did not retreat. They did not try to escape. Instead, they accelerated directly toward the formation at maximum speed. It was suicide, and everyone knew it. But the humans were not just charging blindly. 2 weeks earlier, Daniel had ordered his crews to hide nuclear torpedoes in the asteroid fields around New Montana. It was a precaution, nothing more. He had never expected to actually use them. Now, as the fleet entered the asteroid field, those torpedoes activated. The first explosions caught them completely by surprise. 3 cruisers vanished in balls of nuclear fire. Then 3 more. The asteroids themselves became weapons, their fragments tearing through ships that had lowered their shields to conserve power. Admiral Wren shouted orders, trying to restore control. "Raise all shields, return fire, destroy those patrol ships." But the humans were already among them. The small patrol ships weaved through the formation, firing their weapons at point-blank range. They targeted engines, weapons systems, and command bridges. When their torpedoes ran out, they used their. When they're overheated, they rammed. Lisa Park, the young communications officer, was crying as she piloted the ECS Ranger directly into a destroyer. Her last words were, "Tell my mother I love her." Captain Jonathan Hayes of the ECS Thunder used his damaged ship as a battering ram against a troop transport. He killed 3,000 enemy soldiers with his death. Daniel Brooks saved the flagship for himself. The ECS Defiance was burning, its weapons depleted, its crew dead or dying, but its engines still worked. He opened a final channel to the Void Crusher. "Admiral Wren, I told you to leave. You should have listened." Then he drove his ship directly into the flagship's command deck. The explosion killed both commanders instantly. The Void Crusher, pride of the Third Fleet, broke apart and scattered across the void. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it was over, all 12 human patrol ships were destroyed. Every single crew member was dead. But so were 47 warships. 47 vessels lost to a force they had expected to brush aside like dust. The remaining fleet regrouped and approached New Montana. They were angry now. They wanted revenge for their losses. They would burn this world to ashes. But when they reached the planet, they found it empty. The colonists had vanished into underground bunkers buried deep beneath the surface, and covering every inch of the ground above were fusion charges. The commander, now Admiral Aura, realized what had happened. The humans had trapped them. If the landed troops, the charges would detonate. The entire surface would become a nuclear wasteland. They destroyed their own world, Aura whispered. Rather than let us have it, they destroyed it. She thought about the warning, about the old ambassador who had told them not to challenge humans, about the words he had used. Spite. The humans had shown them spite. They had sacrificed their patrol ships. They had sacrificed their planet. They had sacrificed everything just to hurt the. And this was only the first battle. Aura stared at the ruined world below and felt something she had never experienced before. Fear. 6 months had passed since the Battle of New Montana. The Empire had conquered 3 human colony worlds. They had established bases, built fortifications, and brought in thousands of occupation troops. By every measure, they were winning the war. But something was wrong. Lieutenant Amy crawled through the darkness beneath the ruined city of Haven. Above her, soldiers patrolled the streets, their weapons ready, their senses alert. They had learned to fear the darkness. They had learned to fear the silence. Amy was 26 years old. Before the invasion, she had been a school teacher. She had taught children how to read and write. She had helped them with their homework and dried their tears when they were sad. Now she taught a different lesson. Now she taught what it meant to face human resistance. She reached a junction in the tunnels and whistled softly. 3 figures emerged from the shadows. They were her team, what remained of the Haven resistance. There was old Ben Cooper, a retired mechanic who now built bombs from scrap metal. There was young Tommy Lane, just 18 years old, who had lost his entire family in the first bombardment. And there was Maria Santos, a nurse who had learned to kill as easily as she had once learned to heal. The patrol schedule has changed, Maria whispered. They know we are here. Amy nodded. Good, that means they are afraid. She had been fighting for 6 months. In that time, she had killed 43 soldiers. She had blown up 2 supply depots, poisoned a water treatment facility, and assassinated a colonel while he slept. The enemy called her the Ghost. They had put a price on her head worth more than most planets. She did not care about the price. She cared about making them pay. Tonight's target was a communications tower. It linked their occupation forces to their fleet in orbit. If they destroyed it, they would be blind for at least 12 hours. 12 hours was enough time to do a lot of damage. The team moved through the tunnels with practiced ease. They had mapped every passage, every entrance, every escape route. They had superior technology, but the humans knew this ground. They had grown up here. They had played in these streets as children. Every building, every alley, every shadow was familiar to them. They emerged near the tower just after midnight. 2 guards stood at the entrance, their compound eyes scanning the darkness. They were nervous. They had heard the stories about what happened to soldiers who let their guard down. Ben pulled out a small device and pressed a button. On the other side of the city, an explosion lit up the night sky. The guards turned toward the sound, distracted for just a moment. A moment was all Amy needed. She crossed the distance in seconds, her knife finding the weak spot in the first guard's exoskeleton. The second guard turned just in time to see Maria's blade entering his throat. They died without making a sound. Inside the tower, more guards waited. Amy's team moved from room to room, silent and deadly. They had no advanced weapons, no powered armor, no fancy technology. They had knives, homemade explosives, and the burning desire to hurt their enemy. 20 minutes later, the tower was secure. All personnel were dead. Tommy planted the charges while the others kept watch. As they prepared to leave, Amy stopped to look at an officer she had killed. He was young, probably not much older than her. In another life, in another universe, they might have been able to understand each other, but not in this one. "Why do you keep fighting?" the officer had asked her before he died. "You cannot win. We have more ships, more soldiers, more everything. Why do you not surrender?" Amy had leaned close to him, her eyes cold. "Because we are human, and humans do not know how to quit." Far above New Montana, Captain Cole commanded the ECS Retribution. It was not much of a ship, a converted cargo vessel with weapons bolted onto its hull, but it was all he had, and he would make it count. The human fleet, if you could call it that, consisted of 67 vessels. Compared to the armada of over 3,000 ships, they were nothing, a joke, a minor annoyance. But annoyances could become problems, and problems could become disasters. Had developed a new tactic. The used hyperspace drives to travel between stars. These drives created brief tears in the fabric of space. Normal species avoided these tears. They were unstable and dangerous. Humans were not normal. Had discovered that if you overloaded a hyperspace drive at just the right moment, you could create an unstable tear that would destroy anything within 1,000 kilometers. It was a one-way trip. The ship creating the tear would be destroyed along with its target. He had asked for volunteers. Every single crew member had stepped forward. Tonight, they were going to hit a supply convoy. 40 transport ships carrying food, ammunition, and replacement troops. Enough resources to sustain the occupation for months. 3 human ships would create the tears. 3 crews would die, but they would take 40 vessels with them. As the operation began, thought about what the ambassador had said, about how humans possessed spite, about how they would sacrifice everything just to hurt their enemy. He had thought it was an exaggeration. Now he understood it was simply the truth. In a prison camp on the occupied world of Riverside, Sergeant Moore waited for her interrogators. She had been captured 2 weeks ago during a raid on a weapons depot. Since then, they had questioned her every day. They wanted to know about human tactics, human bases, human weaknesses. She had told them nothing. The interrogator entered the room. He was a large, his exoskeleton from many battles. He sat across from her and studied her with his compound eyes. "You are dying," he said bluntly. "Your wounds are infected. Without medical treatment, you have perhaps 3 days left." Shrugged, "Then I have 3 more days to annoy you." The interrogator leaned forward. "Why do you keep fighting? Your fleet is destroyed. Your colonies are falling. Victory is impossible for your kind." Smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of someone who had accepted death and found peace in it. "You do not understand us," she said. "You think war is about winning, about territory, about resources. For humans, war is about something else." "What?" "Revenge. We are not trying to win. We are trying to make sure you remember us, and you will for the rest of your very short lives." The interrogator did not understand, but he would. 3 days later, Moore died in her cell. She had never broken. She had never talked. But before she died, she carved something into the wall with her fingernails, a message for whoever found her body. It said, "We are coming." And they were. 1 year into the war, Admiral Aura stood before the Supreme Council of the Empire. The great chamber was silent. Every counselor stared at her with expressions she could not read. She had prepared her report carefully. The numbers did not lie, but the numbers were terrifying. "In 12 months of conflict," she began, "we have conquered 3 human colony worlds. We have killed approximately 400,000 enemy combatants. We have established control over significant territory." She paused. This was the easy part. "However, we have also suffered losses beyond anything in our history. 1,200 warships destroyed, 800,000 soldiers dead, 14 supply convoys completely wiped out. Our expansion has effectively stopped." The council chamber erupted in angry clicking sounds. Counselors shouted at each other, at anyone who would listen. How was this possible? They had the largest fleet in the quadrant. The humans were supposed to be primitives. How? Demanded Counselor Al. How have these creatures done this to us? Aura had asked herself that question every day for the past year. Now she finally had an answer. They do not fight like civilized species, she explained. They do not follow rules of engagement. They do not accept surrender. Every battle, even the ones we win, costs us more than we gain. They are willing to sacrifice 10 of their own to kill one of ours. And they never, ever stop. She showed them images from the occupied worlds. Buildings rigged with explosives. Poisoned water supplies. Soldiers who surrendered, only to detonate bombs hidden on their bodies. The humans had turned every street, every house, every shadow into a weapon. Our soldiers cannot sleep, Aura continued. The humans attack at random times from random directions. They disappear before we can respond. Our troops are exhausted, terrified, and demoralized. Many have requested transfer to other fronts, any other front. Supreme Commander Hal, who had started this war with such confidence, sat silently on his throne. He looked older now, worn down by months of bad news. "What do you recommend?" he asked quietly. Before Aura could answer, alarms began to sound throughout the palace. Emergency lights flashed red. Guards rushed into the chamber, their weapons drawn. "What is happening?" Hal demanded. A communications officer ran into the room, his exoskeleton pale with fear. "Supreme Commander, we are under attack. 17 systems, all at once." The humans had finally shown their true strategy. Commander Taylor stood on the bridge of the ECS Vengeance, watching his plan unfold on the tactical display. For 6 months, he had been preparing this operation, moving ships into position, planting agents in facilities, mapping every weakness in their infrastructure. They thought they were winning. They thought the human resistance was just a nuisance. They had no idea what was coming. Operation Blackout began at exactly midnight, Earth time. Synchronized across 17 star systems, human forces struck every major installation simultaneously. In the system, human infiltrators sabotaged the main shipyard. Explosive charges, hidden months ago in construction materials, detonated in sequence. 4 ships under construction were destroyed before they could ever fly. In the Vox system, a human commando team attacked the primary fuel depot. They fought for 3 hours against overwhelming odds. All of them died, but they took the depot with them, along with enough fuel to power a fleet for a year. In the system, human hackers uploaded a virus into the military network. For 48 hours, their communications would be chaos. Ships could not coordinate. Commanders could not give orders. The mighty war machine was suddenly blind and deaf. Watched the reports come in with grim satisfaction. This was not victory. Victory was still far away. But this was the moment that would understand they had made a terrible mistake. Far away on the human colony world of New Eden, Doctor worked in her laboratory. She was not a soldier. She had never fired a weapon or killed anyone. But in her own way, she was the most dangerous human alive. For 2 years, she had studied biology. She had obtained samples from dead soldiers, from captured prisoners, from raids on medical facilities. She had mapped their genetic code, understood their chemistry, found their weaknesses. Now she had created something terrible. The agent was simple, a modified virus that targeted specific proteins in the exoskeleton. It would spread through air, water, and physical contact. Once released, it would kill every it touched within 72 hours. Had the power to end the war in a month. She could commit genocide with a single command. She did not. Instead, she sent a message to the. It was broadcast on every frequency, repeated every hour, impossible to ignore. "Greetings, Empire. My name is Doctor. I am a scientist from the planet Earth. I have developed a biological agent that could destroy your entire species within 30 days. I have enough of this agent to cover every world you control. You cannot defend against it. You cannot cure it. If I release it, you will all die." She paused, letting the words sink in. "I am not releasing it. Not today, perhaps not ever. I want you to understand something. We could kill you all. We choose not to. This is what mercy looks like. Remember it." The message ended, but its impact was just beginning. Panic spread like wildfire. Citizens demanded answers from their government. Military officers questioned their leaders. For the first time in their history, they faced the possibility of extinction. Supreme Commander Hal called an emergency session of the council. The same counselors who had laughed at the warning now sat in terrified silence. "We must negotiate," Counselor Al said. "We must find a way to end this war." "The humans will not negotiate," Aura replied. "We destroyed their colonies. We killed their people. They will not stop until we are broken." "Then we must break them first," Hal said, but his voice had no conviction. He knew it was impossible. The humans could not be broken. They could only be survived. In his ship orbiting a distant star, Ambassador of the Collective recorded another entry in his log. "The tide has turned. They are beginning to understand what they face. The humans have shown them something rare in galactic warfare. They have shown restraint. They have demonstrated that they could destroy their enemy completely but choose not to. This is more frightening than any weapon. It means the humans are not fighting from desperation. They are fighting from choice. They could end this war at any time. They are choosing to make the suffer first." He closed the log and stared out at the stars. "I warned them," he whispered. "I told them not to challenge humans. Now they are learning why." The lesson was far from over. The war ended not with a treaty, but with a retreat. On a cold morning in the capital, Supreme Commander Hal addressed his people for the last time. The crowds gathered in silence, their compound eyes watching the leader who had promised them glory and delivered only death. "Citizens of the Empire," Hal began, "I have failed you. 2 years ago I ordered our fleets to conquer the human territories. I believed it would be easy. I believed we were stronger. I was wrong." He paused, his mandibles clicking slowly. The weight of his failure pressed down on him like a mountain. "The humans have taught us a lesson written in the blood of our soldiers. We have lost 2,847 warships. We have lost 14 million soldiers. We have lost 3 colony worlds that we can never reclaim. And for what? The humans never surrendered. They never broke. They are still fighting, still killing, still making us pay for every meter of ground." The crowds listened in stunned silence. They had never heard a supreme commander admit defeat. "Today I am ordering the withdrawal of all forces from human territory. We will return to our original borders. We will not challenge them again. This is not surrender. This is survival." That night Hal was arrested by his own guards. The council had decided he must pay for his mistake. A week later, he was executed in the same great hall where he had once laughed at the warning. His last words were simple: "The ambassador was right. I should have listened." Across human space, the news of the withdrawal spread like sunrise. On world after world, people poured into the streets to celebrate. They had won. Against impossible odds, against a superior enemy, against everything that logic said should happen, they had won. On New Montana, Amy emerged from the underground bunkers for the first time in 2 years. The surface was and burned, but it was still there. It was still home. She thought about all the people who had died. Commander Daniel Brooks and his 12 patrol ships, the resistance fighters who had given their lives in the tunnels and shadows. Young Tommy Lane, who had died planting explosives on a command center just 3 months ago. So many names, so many faces, so many empty spaces where people used to be. But they had not died for nothing. They had died for this moment, for the moment when they finally understood that some species cannot be conquered. Captain Cole returned to Earth as a hero, the man who had invented the unstable tier tactic, the man who had destroyed more enemy ships than any other human commander. He accepted the medals and the praise with a tired smile. When reporters asked him how he felt, he gave them an honest answer. "I feel old," he said. "I have seen good people die in terrible ways. I have ordered men and women to their deaths because it was necessary. I do not feel like a hero. I feel like a survivor." Doctor refused all interviews. She returned to her laboratory on New Eden and destroyed her research. The biological agent that could have killed every in the galaxy was erased from existence. She told no one about this decision except her assistant. "Why?" her assistant asked. "You could have ended them forever, made sure they could never threaten us again." Looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. "Because we are not like them. We do not commit genocide. We fight when we must, we kill when we must, but we do not destroy entire species. That is what makes us human." She never spoke about the war again. 50 years passed. The human territories expanded. New colonies spread across the Orion Arm. The Empire, weakened by their defeat, slowly rebuilt. They never forgot the lesson they had learned. They never challenged humanity again. Then a new power arose. The hegemony was young and ambitious. Their empire had grown quickly, swallowing smaller species and claiming vast territories. Now they looked toward the Orion Arm and saw opportunity. Ambassador, now ancient beyond measure, was summoned to their council chamber. He had done this before. He knew how it would go. But he had made a promise to himself long ago. He would always deliver the warning, even if no one listened. There were tall creatures with silver scales and cold eyes. Their leader, Grand, studied the old with curiosity. "You come to warn us about the humans," said. "We have heard the stories. Exaggerations, surely." Smiled sadly. "That is what the said." He activated his holographic display. The images that appeared showed the destruction of the fleet, the burning shipyards, the ruined colonies, the final message from Doctor explaining how easily she could have wiped out their species. "They entered this war with 400 warships and left with nothing," explained. "The humans lost 340 ships and 890,000 lives. They never surrendered a single meter of their core territory. Every world they took, they paid for with blood, and in the end, they could not hold them." Shifted uncomfortably, but surely with enough force. "Force is not the answer," interrupted. "I have studied humans for 300 years. They are not like us. They do not think like us. When most species face overwhelming odds, they surrender or flee. Humans do neither. They fight harder. They become more dangerous. They find ways to hurt you that you never imagined." He closed the display and looked directly at the Grand. "The humans have a concept called mutually assured destruction. It means they are willing to destroy themselves if it means destroying their enemy. This is not a bluff. This is not a negotiating tactic. This is their genuine philosophy. They would rather see the galaxy burn than submit to conquest." The council chamber fell silent. "We warned the," continued. "We told them that challenging humans was dangerous, that survival was not guaranteed. They laughed at us. They attacked anyway, and they paid the price." He pulled out a recording device and played the final transmission from Doctor. Her voice filled the chamber, calm and deadly. "We did not start this war, but we finished it. And we will finish anyone else who tries. That is not a threat. It is a promise." The message ended. The counselors looked at each other with expressions of fear. Grand stood slowly. "We will pursue diplomatic relations with humanity instead." The vote was unanimous. As left the council chamber, he added one final note to the archives. It would be preserved for all future civilizations, for all species who might one day look at human space and see easy targets. "We cautioned the Empire, do not challenge humans. Survival is not guaranteed. They did not listen, learn from their mistake." He paused, his old fingers moving slowly over the keys. The humans are not to be conquered. They are to be respected, and above all, they are to be feared. This is the lesson written in the ashes of empires. This is the warning that echoes through the stars. Remember it. He closed the archive and looked out at the infinite darkness of space. Somewhere out there, the humans were building, growing, becoming stronger with every passing year. They had started as a small species on a small planet. They had faced extinction many times. They had survived every challenge, defeated every enemy, overcome every obstacle. And they were just getting started. The galaxy had been warned.